Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. This is the first show that we have done since Thanksgiving weekend. It is good to be back and hope that all of you had a fun holiday weekend. I spent mine in Batesville, Mississippi at the 35th Annual O'Reilly Auto Parts National Indoor Kart Championship. We did a full episode from there that you will see soon here on POWERTube TV and wherever else you see us. And I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about Batesville at the end of this show. But in the meantime, we have got plenty of other motorsports stuff to talk about. And for that, of course, I bring in my trusty co-host and lead editor for Steering Wheel Nation, Jacob Seelman. Jacob, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving with your family.
I did. I appreciate that. Certainly one of those where you sit back and realize that my Thanksgiving was a little bit quieter than yours with where you were, but definitely enjoyable and goodness. Even though it was Thanksgiving week, there was no shortage of stuff to talk about. Now, there between what we'll get to first here in a moment with the legal battle between NASCAR 2311 and Front Row starting and a whole bunch of short track racing that still happened. I love it that even though it's right after a holiday, there's no shortage of directions that we get to go on this show.
Not at all. And looking forward to the run right up into and through the holiday season because we've got a whole lot of things going on over the next several weeks. So excited about all of it. But we start with probably the biggest story of motorsports right now. Honestly, the NASCAR versus the teams, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, the lawsuit. I guess we could just call it the lawsuit and everybody will know what we're talking about, Jacob. But it has, the trial has started and plenty of stuff to talk about that sort of surrounds the beginning days of this thing.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a big thing here, and the fact that today alone was opening arguments. You had Denny Hamlin take the stand right at the end of the day. We had jury selection today, and to me, Tom, the biggest tell of this whole thing was the sequence of tweets between Bob Pockrass and Jeff Gluck earlier today in when both sides were presenting opening arguments. And Judge Bell, Pockrass used the term peeved. Gluck was a little less politically correct and just said what I think everybody realized Bob meant, that Judge Bell was just pissed off at this point that both sides were trying to pull inadmissible evidence and visual arguments into their opening statements, to which he basically said, in effect, y'all, stop this, and maybe if y'all could stop fighting quite so bad, you might get what you want. To me, that's the voice of somebody that says, okay, I see what you're trying to do, and it's not going to fly. Not in this courtroom, not in this situation. And I'll be honest with you, Tom, I don't know how, I don't know what's going through your head about all this, but I think I have a very few opinions about this yet. But I'll keep what I've said since the beginning. If this battle's going to go all the way through to jury deliberation and a verdict one way or the other, it needs somebody who's going to take no crap. And I get the impression, particularly by some of the things that were reported that Judge Bell said today, that he's done taking crap from both sides. And this is either going to be shot straight or it's not going to happen at all.
Well, I think the key here is, Jacob, that Judge Bell does not want an appeal. He does not want this case to get to appeal. So whatever he has to do to basically get everything out, get everything discussed, and get everything decided, and make it less likely or make it so that there's no appeal. I think that's what he wants to do. He wants this done and over with. And so my gut tells me that he's going to run this basically by the book. He's not going to allow a lot of, as you put it, shenanigans on either side. And he's not going to allow it to turn into a sideshow any more than it has to be. So I think this is going to be fascinating to watch play out, Jacob. We didn't get a whole lot of, a whole lot of stuff on the first day other than the opening argument for NASCAR. And I think the team's opening argument actually is going to move to day 2. So we'll obviously, keep everybody updated on that through steeringwheelnation.com and our socials. But, it's just, this is a mess. I mean, why they couldn't come together and settle this thing prior to trial, I don't know, but it's just a mess.
No, it really is. And I'll say real quick before I ask you the big question here, Tom, is
sure.
What really stuck out to me in all of this was actually a letter that came to light in some of the artifacts surrounding the case that Bob Pockrass actually tweeted this morning from Heather Gibbs, who was Coy's wife before Coy passed unexpectedly, and Heather kind of took over that ownership role within the team. And Heather was very frank in what she relayed to the top NASCAR brass in why, in her eyes, the charters needed to be permanent, or actually her word was evergreen, which I liked a whole lot better than because it was explained later that permanent, air quotes, charters would basically be giving the teams a stake in NASCAR, which was a description that I hadn't fully thought about before. But at the end of the day, it's really a fascinating read. If everybody hasn't seen that they really should take the time. It's a 3-page letter that Heather wrote. Just really fascinating stuff, and gave me a new perspective, and actually kind of made me agree with the teams a little more honestly, Tom. And the fact that basically the way it was portrayed in opening arguments was that letter was read to other NASCAR brass by Jim France and pretty much laughed at. So it's hard for me to say which direction I see this going. So I'll just ask you the big picture question. Do you have any feeling as to where you see this potentially going before this is all said and done, if it's all said and done, if we don't get a settlement?
Well, I feel like I have less of a feeling than I thought I had a month or so ago, only because I feel like some of the correspondence that came out, in terms of some of the texts and things, number one, and we can get into those in more detail if you like, but number one, they speak to the attitude that Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell and the other NASCAR brass have toward the teams, and certain people in particular, and I think it shows you that it would lead you to believe that what a lot of people were saying about how, the teams were basically, browbeaten into signing the last charter. I think you get the idea that sort of attitude was in fact a part of this. I think we're going to see that, NASCAR certainly didn't deal with this in the way that you probably would have wished that they did. And that makes me really wonder about where this goes, because I really had hoped they would settle it before it had to be decided in court, because what we're subject to here is that if the teams basically win the suit, NASCAR could be broken up in a number of different ways here. Like, everything is on the table. And so I had really hoped that NASCAR would be wise enough to realize that it would be easier to sit down and look at this and try to figure this thing out before we got here. But now I'm worried, to be honest, that the teams might actually win. Now, part of me says, okay, good. Out of this will come something better. Okay. But it's going to also be different.
That's the question.
But that's why I said it's going to also be something different, and everybody's definition of better is so. I personally think that if you're going to have a charter, the teams should have, in essence, a stake in NASCAR. I think what they need is something more similar to what Formula One has, for example, or what the NFL has. If you want franchises, they're franchises, and everybody shares equally in the revenue, and we create more ways to make revenue so everybody grows. And so I think this is going to be fascinating to watch, because honestly, this one, because of the private ownership component, this one is very unique in comparison to other lawsuits that, have looked at these monopolistic issues in other sports.
All right, so let's pivot for a minute to some of the texts and documents that came out prior to opening day of this lawsuit, which was December 1st, as this show is being taped, as a matter of fact. To me, what sticks out the most are some of the comments back and forth between Steve Phelps, who's the now NASCAR commissioner, former NASCAR president, and NASCAR chief media officer Brian Herbst. Some of the comments where Phelps said of Richard Childress that he, quote, needs to be taken out back and flogged. He's a stupid redneck who owes his entire fortune to NASCAR, end quote. Added that Childress is a, quote, idiot, end quote, and if they don't like the sport, sell your charter and get out. And then again, quote, did I mention that Childress is an idiot, end quote? That from Steve Phelps. So unsurprisingly, out of all that came the news late last week that Richard Childress was exploring legal action over all of that. But you and I, Tom, have talked about this a little bit leading up to this show, that really, this is as much about the public perception of Steve Phelps and the NASCAR brass as it is anything else, is it not?
Well, exactly. That's it. And this is where this starts to go. Now, let me say first that, let's keep in mind, these are texts that were never meant to be obviously public. Now, you could say, well, but that doesn't mean that that's not how they really feel. Of course, that's how they really feel. I'm just saying that, I'm allowing for the fact that these guys are talking to each other in these texts. So, but honestly, I think it's unfortunate, to be honest, that Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, Herbst, any of the folks in these texts. I think it's unfortunate that we now know that that's how they really feel. I don't know if a lot of us are surprised. I think it comes out in the way that they have operated the sport since they've both been in their respective positions. So, I think that it's going to be very difficult for those guys to come back from that. And, I don't know what actual effect it's going to have on the trial or the outcome of the trial. But, clearly there is an arrogance, a level of arrogance. And even when, I forget which of the Steves it was, talked about Richard Childress, how he made all his money from NASCAR or whatever. NASCAR made a whole lot of money off Richard Childress too, and the 3-car and Dale Earnhardt and 7-time track champion. And this goes both ways. And I think the fans, when they look at these texts, it's almost like these guys don't realize that if it weren't for the Richard Childresses and the other team owners, there wouldn't be a NASCAR. I mean, and I think that's what's so frustrating to those of us who are looking at this, is that this goes both ways.
I don't disagree with that. So now I'll ask the $40 million question, if you will. What happens if, for some reason, this doesn't go the way of 2311 and Front Row? Is there any scenario where, if 2311 and Front Row don't either win or settle, that they still exist after this?
I mean, I can't answer that from a factual standpoint. I mean, I haven't talked with anybody from either team that's said that's commented either way on that. I mean, I haven't asked that question. I think it would be a question. It wouldn't be a question of ability. It would be a question of whether they want to. At least as far as Michael Jordan goes. I mean, he could continue to operate without a charter. But I'll be honest, I don't think that I don't think that's going to end up happening. I just don't. I don't see a scenario in which either of those teams lose their charters. Now, that doesn't mean that there's going to be a lot of big changes ultimately in how NASCAR operates or whatever, or they're going to get the other things they want. But I just can't see, in the end, I can't see that happening, to be honest. I know there are people saying they would shut down within a year or whatever, but I just don't think we have to worry about that, to be honest. And I'm going to hold on to that until I see evidence otherwise, because I don't think these two teams would have taken it this far if they realistically thought that that could happen.
Fair enough. It's interesting, and I will add just real quickly that it's really sobering to me to hear some of the numbers in all of this as court began on day one. Denny Hamlin also revealing in the lead up to this how much money they spent to build Airspeed, the 2311 shop, $35 million. When you look at Bob Jenkins, the owner of Front Row, his deposition, he said he's lost over $100 million total since he began operating Front Row Motorsports in NASCAR. I mean, these are not small numbers, but to me, it's a big reminder of just how big all of this is. And in regards to the point of, can they still survive, Tom, Bob Pockers again reporting that if the teams don't either win or settle to get what they need to survive, that they're gone within a year. So this is, as Michael Jordan put it a few weeks ago, not in these words, but it's do or die for these teams. They either get what they're fighting for, or this is the end of 2311 and Front Row in NASCAR. And I don't even think we've brought up the fact that, Michael Jordan being in NASCAR is a big deal. Michael Jordan being forced out of NASCAR, ooh, boy.
Well, a couple things here. To your point about Bob Jenkins saying he's lost $100 million. Honestly, at the end of the day, that again speaks to the reality of the situation that we face in this whole thing. This is why these two teams are doing what they're doing. You've heard Jeff Gordon talk about Hendrick Motorsports not making a profit for 10 years or whatever. The reality is there's not the cost of competition in NASCAR has gone up and up and up, and the revenue down to the teams has not kept up with the increase in costs. So what Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin and the folks in Front Row are fighting for here is just a better business model. That's basically what they're looking for. And so we'll see where this goes, but grab your popcorn, folks, because The main show has just gotten
Mhm.
underway, and it's going to be a very interesting month of December around Charlotte and in the courtroom. With that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what we love on this show, short track racing, right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the show, and we now switch our focus to the short tracks. And Jacob, I think it's so cool that Corey Day, who is, I think, one of the top prospects coming into NASCAR out of the dirt tracks right now, ends up winning his second straight Turkey Night Grand Prix Midget feature out in California. And what I love about this is that it just puts a giant period on his, I don't want to say in his dirt career, because I think he's still going to be running some dirt tracks, but he's not going to be full-time, obviously. And I think Corey, although he made some noise in 2025, surely, in the Xfinity Series, I think he's going to make a lot of noise in 2026.
I think so too. And I want to put this in neon lights and be very clear. I am not saying that Corey Day is done racing dirt. That is not what I mean at all when I say he kind of got his last hurrah by going back to back at Turkey Night. Just the last hurrah of his full-time dirt days. And really, I guess he wasn't technically full. Yeah, of this chapter. Yes, there we go. Thank you. No. Back-to-back at Turkey Night is something that's not been done very often in the history of the event, oh, by the way. But for Corey to get a second straight and to do it in a car owned by the Kane family, Willie Kane's car, Casey's cousin, and just a very, very long tenured entrant, Chili Bowl, big races like Turkey Night, the BC 39, etc. I mean, that team is top shelf, even if they only compete here and there. Whenever they are at the racetrack, you know they have a shot to win. And yeah, to me, Corey just proved everything that I've known for years, that he is damn good at anything he gets in, number one. And number two, he absolutely has the talent. This year was all about him getting acclimated in NASCAR circles. I know he had a few starts in 2024, but 2025 was truly about Corey Day getting acclimated in NASCAR, prep for what's coming in 2026 and running for Rookie of the Year and potentially for an Xfinity Series championship if the opportunity arises. He has Kyle Larson's stamp of approval. He's had that from the beginning. But no, this was a big deal. Super stoked for Corey to get that win and really prove that when he does come back and run on dirt in 2026 and beyond, just like Kyle Larson, when he shows up in the pit area, you're going to have to go through him in order to win the race. And, I love it for him. I really love it for Willie Kane. That's a team, like I said, that doesn't always get the due for just how good of equipment they bring to the racetrack every single time. But while Corey was kissing the Aggie hat, which for those who don't know is the traditional Turkey Night trophy, there was another driver celebrating, who you and I, Tom, know as Cannon Mac. Cannon McIntosh celebrating the USAC NOS Energy Drink Midget Championship and becoming the first driver in modern midget car history to complete the Triple Crown in terms of points titles. He is the only driver to have a title in USAC, a title in POWERi, and a title with World Racing Group's Extreme Outlaw Midget Series. And Cannon's only in his mid-20s. I mean, the kid still has so much career ahead of him, whatever he ultimately decides to do, but he has absolutely torn up the midget ranks the last few years. And to me, for him, for Keith Kunz Motorsports, for that whole bunch, this was the ultimate icing on, to me, a cake that Cannon's been baking now for about 5 or 6 years in, that discipline of racing, and USAC at the pinnacle. I mean, once you've done that, there's nothing else for him to prove in those cars.
No, but he has to keep racing him. He can't ever leave dirt to go to NASCAR. I made him promise me earlier this year at Millbridge that he wouldn't. Because we don't have Steve Kinzers anymore. We don't have Sammy Swindells. I mean, Sammy still runs a few races here and there, but we need career sprint car legends again. And it seems like every time someone starts climbing the ranks, they decide to make a right-hand turn and head east and get in stock cars. And it's not that I want to begrudge him a NASCAR career, but doggone, we need dirt track heroes again. And so, I surely hope that Cannon will honor that promise, even with the Triple Crown. But that's a great accomplishment, and he is he's a really classy young driver, and really puts his heart and soul into it, works hard at it, and makes the most of every opportunity he gets. And that's what it takes anymore, because although the cars haven't changed a lot over the last 20 or 25 years, the level of competition has. And Cannon really is, I think, one of these drivers that if he sticks around in dirt in 10 years is going to be, a real powerhouse. And like I said, we need career dirt track racers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Dason Pursley is another one that comes to mind as somebody who's in a similar mold to Cannon, that it looks like is going to stay on the dirt a while if his new deal with Casey Kane Racing is of any indication. But I'll digress on that subject and, shall we say, shift gears to the pavement side of short track racing for a minute, because if we had drama on the courtroom, but we had drama on the racetrack over Thanksgiving weekend as well, and after the racetrack too. Doug Barnes Jr., Air Doug, won the Thanksgiving Classic at Southern National Motorsports Park, Tom, and then promptly got protested before they could even fully get the victory lane celebrations done. Tom Usry Racing, Marcus Richmond, the crew chief on that car. That's the car that Caden Honeycutt had been driving the past couple of years. Josh Berry was in it for Thanksgiving Classic. Suffice it to say that Marcus and the team protested Doug on the basis of engine and traction control. And instead of them getting their wish, because Barnes counter protested the runner-up car himself, I guess just to prove a point, suffice it to say, Doug kept the win, and instead of Marcus and Josh Berry and that bunch getting Doug thrown out, it was their car that was actually found to be illegal by the rule book and thrown out from a runner-up finish that elevated some Lee Pulliam guy. Never heard of him. Don't know why he's important. Just kidding. I promise. So Barnes wins. Pulliam gets elevated to second in the JRM car after an incident earlier in the race where Berry went spinning off of Lee's front bumper inadvertently. Like I said, suffice it to say, drama aplenty at SNMP, but this is the biggest win of Doug's career, Tom. You and I watched him going back to his days when he and his brother Trent were racing in different classes at Hickory Motor Speedway. Doug's never won a crown jewel like this. This is a huge, huge moment for him.
Oh, it is. And, look, Doug's a great guy and he's a really good driver. And it's cool to see him get this win. I was excited for that. And I was interested in the protest. And it's always interesting to me when the protester gets protested, and then just like happened here, the protester who protested and got reprotested ends up being the one thrown out for being illegal. And so it's just fun. Sometimes it's like, maybe I shouldn't do this, but it was good that happened. And of course, I think there was an incident on track with Josh and Lee, right? And again, I think there was nothing done on purpose there. That was just Josh. I think he just messed up. And I think he pretty much said that in his post-race interview. He doesn't race these late models all the time anymore. And, he's run so many other kind of cars with different transmissions in them that, now he gets back in the late model and he's just a little bit rusty. And I think that's what happened there.
Sure. Two more big moves in the late model world. And I really want to be able to hear your take on one of them for sure, but both of them, depending on what you've got here. So two big moves. Number one, Marty Milo, who had been part of ASA for a large portion of this year, has acquired the 4 ASA tours, the National Series, ASA Midwest Tour, the CRA Super Series, and the CRA, what's been the JEGS All-Stars Tour for so many years for pro late models, as well as Track TV from Bob Sargent and Track Enterprises. So a change in leadership at the top there. And then the IHRA launching their stock car series for grassroots late models next year. And to me, that's a giant move. But which one do you want to get to first?
Well, let's talk about the ASA move, because that one particularly interested me for the fact that the gentleman who has taken it over has been sort of learning and working in it and co-managing it for the last year or so. And really, I think, is looking at this in a little bit of a bigger picture. No changes for 26 in scheduling or participating tracks or anything, but Marty seems to have a really interesting big picture thought about all of this that I'm going to be intrigued to watch. I don't think it's going to be any different from the fans' point of view right away than, what it's been under Bob Sargent, but I think that's going to be fascinating. And we're going to tackle the IHRA after this break, because I definitely have a few things to say about that. So we'll take a break, be back with more of the Tom Baker Show right after this. For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, getinthestands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to getinthestands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point. either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the show as we get into our final segment here, the last lap segment of the show. We're going to slide the IHRA late model discussion into this, Jacob. As you pointed out, this was a shockwave that has gone through the short tracks and even the drag race world. One of the two biggest names in drag racing is now getting into other forms of motorsports, including an oval track, short track series.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the International Hot Rod Association is basically the counterpoint to the NHRA in the two sides of professional drag racing. And for the IHRA to come out with an announcement over Thanksgiving week that they are launching a grassroots late model division or late model series for late model stocks and pro late models next year, I mean, it made my jaw drop on the floor, and it took me about a day to completely pick it up off the floor, just trying to process it all.
Me too.
And the money, Tom, you've read into this even more than I have, just through a few of your connections. That there is a lot of money behind this if people start doing the math, and it is very real. And if there's racer buy-in going into 2026 and they believe in what's being proposed here, this could be a massive, massive deal for late model racing, not just in the Southeast, but really across the country if the IHRA can expand this, in my mind. What are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. And there's a couple of key differences here. One that I didn't even realize until you sent me a link to an article that Matt Weaver wrote on shorttrackscene.com. And the IHRA late model series is using a limited late model for their NASCAR type late model. Instead of a late model stock, it's a limited late model, or as they used to be called, late model sportsman back in the 90s. No bump stops, no coil binding. I mean, AFCO, $400 AFCO shocks. They're really trying to take this back down a notch, this whole sort of touring late model thing, so that the average Saturday night racer who's got a pro late model or a limited late model can go and tour and make some really good money without having to spend a ton of money on the car comparatively in order to do it. Obviously travel costs money depending on where you're coming from, but I think this is the kind of concept we needed, and I love what's being done here. Now, quickly, to your point about this gentleman's background. Okay. He is a big time businessman who has done work with Elon Musk and several other major sort of tech businessmen, and he has the resources, and more importantly, he has the sincere from the heart passion. This is his legacy. And, he is out to leave behind a legacy of making racing more affordable. And so he's not only into the drag racing, where he's bought a lot of old drag strips, but he's also gotten into tractor pulling. He's in power boat racing. He himself had a boat, went 242 miles an hour, which is about 120 miles an hour faster than I would ever go in a boat. And so this guy is very serious. He's hired the right people. I think this has the chance to make a big time impact right away. And this is not about competing with the Cars Tour. This is aimed at a much different portion of the late model audience than the Cars Tour currently is.
And that's also why, and this was also brought up in the Short Track Scene article that you referenced, that this is also why they're not worried that they conflict schedule-wise with a couple of the Cars Tour races
Right.
and the big money, the Martinsville late model stock race late in the year as well, because they feel their series, to your point, is dedicated to a completely different audience in that front. Two really quick lightning round points. Number one, what do you feel the impact is going to be of the Schumacher name coming to the Indianapolis 500 with Mick Schumacher going full-time with Rahal Letterman Lanigan next year?
Huge. I think it's going to be huge. Obviously, just for getting IndyCar on the world stage. I mean, Michael Schumacher's son is racing IndyCars, and so many people are just scared to death of him racing on ovals. Why? I mean, good grief. We've had drivers race in Indy for years on other ovals. I think it's great, and I think it will do a lot for Rahal Letterman Lanigan in terms of marketing and sponsorship. And I hope he comes over here and kicks everybody's butt, because I think he really kind of got screwed in F1. He never had a fair shot to prove himself in a top car.
Absolutely. And I also want to let you give a shout out. As you mentioned off the top, you were at the 35th O'Reilly National Indoor Kart Championships in Batesville, Mississippi, over Thanksgiving week. And I'm curious, I mean, the experience I know for you is always second to none, but what was your memorable moment this year?
Oh gosh, we had, I think probably the memorable moment. There were actually 7 of them. And there were 7 of them. It was the 7 races that Braden Chavis, who is still down in the Junior 1 class, he was 7 for 7, which tied the record for most wins in a Batesville weekend with Donnie Shaw, who was not a junior. Donnie Knoll, Disco Donnie, as they call him, from over here in Carolina, had the record, won 7 races on the weekend a few years ago. Braden tied it. And in the 8th race, which could have broke the record, he was running for the lead and made a mistake and spun himself out. And had to come from the back and just ran out of time, but he got 7, and it was just fun to see that somebody was that locked in. But Batesville, again, 1,395 entries, the second largest turnout in the history of the event. 44 races, 22 each day. It's always fun to go do that show. It's still there on Pit Road TV. If you've got Pit Road TV, go ahead and go catch it. Both days are on there. A lot of side-by-side action. The weekend for the most part went very, very well, and can't wait for the 36th annual next year. It should be a lot of fun. But again, Pit Road TV has it, and we did a show from Batesville with the track in the background again from inside the arena, and that'll be coming up in a few weeks as well. A couple of the drivers on it, and my co-announcer Hayden Benson, who's the event statistician too. So that was a lot of fun to do. And that will wrap it up for this show. For more great content, go check us out at steeringwheelnation.com. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Wheel Nation, and you can catch me on Instagram at Tom Baker TV. Also LinkedIn, same handle at Tom Baker TV on LinkedIn as well. We have got some great shows coming up over the next few weeks, so stay with us. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. So long.